All right, welcome back, everyone. In the Margins March, here we go. I'm excited about today, even though my preparation for today was probably not as great as it could have been, but it doesn't matter. It's going to be an absolutely fantastic day. I'm convinced of this. Um, yeah, it's kind of half will, half just um, excited to share this with you. So welcome. Once again, my name is DJ Eshelman. Glad to be here with you on this. Well, today I guess is Wednesday, right? Yeah. Who said that I had to look? Pretty soon I'll be actually one of the next sessions coming up here. We'll be going over some of the things I use to manage my calendar and whatnot. But nonetheless, I wanted to uh, yeah, go over this with you today. So anyway, in fact, I just realized I need to fake it out here and actually just do a thing in the background here while I talk and vamp. That I need to pull this up in a different window and be smarter about these kind of things. Yay! um, there we go. Okay, so there's a video I want to show you today, and so I wanted to get that ready for you here and see if there's a smarter way to do this. Actually, I think there are, but yeah, nonetheless, here we go. So today we're going to be talking about what some people may have heard the term SMART goals, SMART. We're actually going to be talking about smarter goals, and specifically, we're going to use the same system that Michael Hyatt uses. He's a virtual mentor of mine, I guess you could say. Interestingly enough, we live in the same town, not far from each other at all, but just one of those things where it's never been kind of in the makings in the last 6 years for us to 5 years or so that we've actually met in person. So it is what it is, right? It just kind of happens sometimes that you have these connections that are virtual that you sometimes interact with. But Michael obviously is a pretty busy guy, and so I just haven't had the opportunity yet to make it happen. But one of these days. But anyway, his systems work for me, and so I wanted to share them. Just like last time, we went over the Covey method of the kind of a matrix of how to organize tasks and how to go about your day. This is a similar kind of a thoughtful system as far as how to kind of interrogate a little bit those goals we have, whatever the tasks we have, all these things that are coming up in our lives. We want to actually do a little bit of um, proactive work and make sure that we're actually all on the same page, kind of thing. And the smarter system, is a way to do that for yourself. In other words, you are um, taking a proactive look at your goal setting and saying, how can I improve this? And so that's actually the first thing I wanted to say to you is that when it comes to setting goals, it is very important that you realize that it's not about getting it right, it's about getting it done. So sometimes we can get so hung up on the process or lack thereof. Either way, it's uh, pendulum swings both ways. I can words good. But anyway, the point is that sometimes we get too caught up in the process. We're not doing it right, whatever, when all we really should be doing is just getting it done and optimizing another time. Or sometimes we'll just think that, it's no point in doing it well. We'll just, do it however we can, and that never gets done. So there's a happy medium here, and that's what I'm going to be showing you today is how to find that. Now, specifically, as you know, I am really focusing this particular series, even though these lessons can be applied to pretty much everybody. I am actually very much focused on the people of IT at this point, and that is where I'm coming from in this regards. Is that we want to have that goal in mind, so or that kind of a focus in mind, I should say. Whew, man, maybe I just need to take a minute and express some gratitude for being here today. It's one of the things where I literally just got off of other calls, and so it is sometimes interesting how your brain works, where it doesn't always shift context as rapidly as we think it will, which is a good lesson to learn. Really, is that sometimes we do need to be very specific about giving ourselves time in between things, so you actually have the time to focus. In this particular case, it is my fault. I actually was not cognizant of the time. I wasn't watching. On my calendar, I had set the boundary. In my mind, I just kept working. So had I been a little bit more cognizant of my schedule, then that would have happened. So next week, when we talk about the kind of system I use for scheduling and things like that, and then kind of looking at that more pragmatically, I guess you'll see kind of the pros and cons of why this can happen. But at the same time, I don't necessarily like to live my life ruled by a calendar or whatever. But at the same time, it can be very important to be cognizant of that. So, um, in any case, I wanted to kind of go over some review time with you, and that sort of thing. So basically, what we've been talking about with the goals in terms of, especially with people of IT, especially, but it works for everybody, is that we really want to have a why, have a reason why you're doing things, and latch onto that. That will become incredibly important in today's workshops. So very important to have good reasons why you're doing things that resonate with you personally. Otherwise, well, you'll see here in a few moments why, if you don't have those things really solidified in your life, it's going to be really hard to set goals that actually matter and are actually achievable. And so that's kind of, yeah. Uh, no need for a spoiler. You're going to see it soon enough. So that's just letting you know if you need to go back and review that. But in the nutshell, it really is that we need to care enough about everything we're after. Otherwise, you know what? It's just not going to happen. So if we are just allowing ourselves to be a victim and just not have any sense of control in our lives, well, that's really hard for me to do anything with. I hope I can inspire a difference there. I hope I can inspire some sort of different thinking in that regards. But ultimately, it's up to you. Either you care about improving your life or you don't. Either you care about improving your career or you don't. So ultimately, that why is up to you. And then last time we talked about kind of taking control of the present to rule the future, and we talked about how we can put our day to day into several buckets or a quadrant, and kind of be able to look at that more pragmatically and take control of that, and try and do everything we can to get into more that quadrant 2 area, and do more tasks that way, and not feel bad about the other quadrants necessarily, but just do efforts that actually kind of lead us toward those important but non-urgent things in our lives. So then again, another good thing to review, and we'll actually probably go through that again soon enough when we start talking about the schedule. We'll start talking about trying to allocate more of your time towards quadrant 2 activities and less in terms of quadrants 1 and 3, while also making sure you have plenty of time for quadrant 4, which, by the way, some of the things we'll be talking about today when it comes to goal setting will apply to quadrant 4, interestingly enough. So that's a interesting aside there, but we'll get into this. So we're going to do a little experiment right now, and I'm going to add, if I can figure this out. Here we go. So this is a video that was put together. I didn't do this. This is not my video. I can't figure out a way to attribute this properly. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to play this, but I'm going to also give it a cool little soundtrack, and we'll see if this all works together. And this is me doing a live experiment, and you're welcome. Okay, here we go. All right. So obviously it started playing something else and I didn't want it to, but that's okay. We'll get right into this. So smarter goals. So you can see that it's spelled out SMARTER, right? So let's actually get into this. And I'll have some visual cues here for you, so it'll be helpful. But if you have a piece of paper, this is a good time to get that out and start taking some notes because honestly, this is something we'll want to uh, uh, this is more of an exercise today. And so you'll want to actually be able to take some notes down. And so we are going to, what I'll do is I'll go through these and go through this in more detail. Like you've already seen, you kind of got the preview of here of what all we're talking about. And then we'll go through each one and kind of get some deeper knowledge here. So let's start off with, as you can see, SMARTER. First one that a goal needs to have is it needs to be specific. And what this means is more simply than not, you just don't want it to be vague. So, what Michael Hyatt says is the more focused your goal, the more you'll find yourself motivated to accomplish it. If the goal is too vague, it can be hard to know where even to start. So, brilliant. So, when it comes to writing specific goals, you want them to not be something that is overly like. I'll give you an example here. Let's say we want to lose weight, right? So, a specific goal is not, I want to lose weight. What is specific about that? Other than kind of declaring an overall intention in your life, it doesn't really tell you anything. It doesn't tell you why you want to do it. It doesn't tell you how much you want to do it or anything like that. It's not very specific in those kind of things, and so um, there might be more to it. And so obviously that's something. Actually, let's do this here. We will actually go back to our whiteboard, and you'll see more of my horrible writing because you know what? That's just how we do it around here. So we're gonna do right down the line here. We'll just do SMARTER. So specific. So what we'll do is we'll kind of have a goal we want to work through. So let's say in our first round draft, our goal is to lose weight. Um, or we'll use another example in a more professional setting to where I've been mentioning that I want to launch a course, right? So launch course. And of course, my pen is kind of stuttering on the virtual page here, but that's the way it goes. So what is wrong with these goals? They sound great, right? They sound very typical of what I will hear out there. But the problem is, I don't know anything about this. I just know that a general theme. And so, what I might want to say is lose weight. That's not really good enough. What kind of weight do I want to lose? It's like lose weight. Maybe that is fat. Specifically, I want to lose fat weight. It's easy enough to lose weight. All you have to do is starve yourself to death or not drink any water forever. You will lose weight. It's not good to lose weight that way, but I want to be specific and say I want to lose fat weight, right? I want to shed pounds that are visceral and are not helping me and keeping me, kind of almost wanting to die or literally dying in some cases can actually uh, yeah, yeah, give you a brush with your own mortality. So we want to say, okay, we want to have something specific there, and we'll get into tightening this down even more as we go here. But let's say launch a course. Okay, well, what does that mean? Well, maybe we could say, what do we want to teach? And so in this case, with my case, I want to say I want to teach my Citrix skills. And I'm a child who grew up in the early 80s. And so it's natural for me to do a Z instead of an S because I'm a professional. Bear with me. It's hard to be humorous when you're not hearing any laughter in the background and you're talking to a webcam, but bear with me. I love doing this stuff. I really do. So can you see? Hopefully, you can see here how just that first step, we already have a better goal just by doing that one thing of making it more specific in that regards, right? And again, we're going to come back and we're going to you reformulate this whole thing throughout all these criteria. So let's move on to the next, which is measurable. So your goals should be able to be measured and start, and except for a lot of exceptions here, a lot of exceptions. Very few exceptions actually exist here. A lot of times, if you can't measure it by any regards, then we'd have to just leave this criteria off. But in almost all cases, a goal can be measured in some way or another. So we do say, okay, we want to measure this, right? So in this kind of case, what we're going to do is say that these are goals that should be um, written down. First of all, this is why we're doing this exercise this way. We're actually writing things down, and that helps you kind of know where you are in the goal to begin with. But you need to make sure that that goal has some built-in kind of mile markers or some sort of indicator of of what progress looks like in that regards. And so Michael Hyatt says you should be able to break down the goal into specific milestones along the way in order to track your progress. So, and we'll get into some other ways this breaks down pretty soon here, and I think you're gonna love this. So, in our case, let's actually bring it back and let's look more at the measurable. So, measurable. Come on, pen, you can do it. No, let's not do it that way. Let's make this easier to write. Okay. So when it comes to our losing weight, so we say lose fat. I want to lose fat. Now I chose this for a reason. Can you tell? There's very much a way to measure this sort of thing. You get on the scale and it shows you something, right? It shows you amount of weight that you're losing. Now, kind of in the video that inspired this entire series, I made a note that sometimes these measures aren't very good. And so sometimes you have to come back and edit those measures. And that's exactly what happened in my case. I found that my I had actually on the board behind me, you can kind of maybe you can't make that out, obviously. Well, obviously in this view you can't. Uh, come on, Deej. In each of these, you'll see sections that are going out throughout the year, right? So you've got various months and everything like that. And I'm probably revealing too much strategic information there, but yeah, whatever. I'm a kind of an open book there, but you can kind of see I crossed out some sections here. Let me point these out. So just kind of crossed these out. I'm not wearing my wireless mic. Why did I do that? Anyway, I crossed those out, right? They're not really what I wanted to do. I knew I needed a better measure. And so what I did instead of saying pounds of fat, amount of weight per se, I said, well, what is it that I actually want to do? Because if I use this measure, I'd be a failure right now. I'm telling you that right now. So I've been going to the gym and I haven't been to the gym, especially going to the gym regularly, in well over 7 years. It just hasn't been part of my life. Actually, I take that back. It's longer than that. Again, TMI, but the reality is that as far as going to the gym goes, and in that level of exercise on a regular basis, it has actually been over 12, 13 years. And even then was kind of not as heavy as I was, 17 years ago, that sort of thing. So it goes back that far, which is embarrassing in a way, but also means that I had a lot to learn about my goals, right? And so my typical way of measuring this would be just by dieting, right? Dieting alone and not doing an exercise, and it would just cause my weight to fluctuate back and forth depending on whether I was dieting or not, right? That's the way this goes. So my initial thought about this was, oh my gosh, here I am. I'm doing all this work. I'm watching what I eat. I'm not drinking as much alcohol, that sort of thing. I'm doing all the right things, and my weight is going up. What? My measures are way off, and so all my goals about losing 5 pounds a month and doing all this. I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but you'll get into it. Um, so it was actually causing me to um, get distressed and wanting to quit until I said, okay, wait a minute. I've got better tools here. I've got the tools to measure this more effectively. And so my watch, I can actually do things like, you probably can't see this. I don't know why I'm even bothering, but you can kind of see if I were to do this, maybe I'll just take it off and do that. You can see a blank screen. I'm kidding. So you can actually see that this has the ability to do a measure of the metrics I actually care about the most, right? So it will actually, I can get on the scale at the same time every day, make it consistent, and measure my body composition. And so it's not only saying, well, how much do I weigh? It's saying, okay, well, how much muscle mass do you have, and how much fat mass do you have, and all these other metrics that are involved in this. And what I was able to see from that is that I actually am building muscle mass because, hey, spoiler alert, if you don't go to the gym, you're probably not going to build much muscle mass unless you've got something else in your life that's really more than just, sitting on a chair for most of the pandemic. So I needed to get a better goal of that. So what I said was, okay, it really is about losing fat. So let's get more specific about that. And then let's also measure that. So what I said is, what I want to do is lose, um, let's say overall, my goal is to lose about, and I'm going to just be kind of a little bit vague here, and say that I was saying my goal is about 30 pounds of visceral fat. So it's a measure. It's something that I can say, okay, I want to shed off that much of that specific measure of weight. And so I'm getting much more close to measuring that. Let's take the course example. So for the course, um, in fact, I probably should have just color coded these differently, shouldn't I? So we'll just make black uh, our new red. So our citric skills course, right? So that's what we're wanting to do. So how do I measure that particular one? Well, there's a bunch of things I can use for this. What does success look like for me in this? What does success look like for my students in this? There are specific measures that I can go with. And for me, I will say um, teach 50 students. In truth, my goal is obviously much bigger than that, but we'll get to why this is important to be kind of more streamlined with this very shortly. So my goal with this now becomes teach 50 students, um, new citric skills or citric skills, right? So still a little bit vague, but we're going to get into some other measures that are going to work here for that. And I, I really think you're going to like this. I really hope so. So that's measurable, right? So next, we are going to get into the next section, which is to be actionable. Now, there's a couple things to note here. One is that actionable. It's a not just that you're going to do something. It's that you're going to use that language. You're going to use action-oriented language, and this is a nuance that I actually do find it a little bit difficult at times, right? So there's some things about this that sometimes it's simple, sometimes it's not. And sometimes making these words actionable can be kind of rough. So again, let's go back to what Michael Hyatt says, and it says make your goals actionable. Use action verbs to ensure that your goals define what it is you're going to do. This type of goal prompt it will prompt you into action. It will also help you throughout the year to stay motivated. If you're doing like a yearly goal kind of thing, which is kind of context of this initial framework, um, having it actionable actually helps in that regards. So, do, 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 sorry, Eric is on LinkedIn saying he has to go to the gym uh, fairly soon, and I'm kind of right there with you. That's one of my goals after this will be to jump right to the gym as well because I know I have a busy evening doing some other tasks, so it'll be important to get that into the play here. So actionable. Let's put that up here. So again, we're getting some challenge here. So when it comes to the losing weight, how can we make losing weight actionable? Well, there's a couple different ways we can do this. We can actually literally say, change the word lose to shed. Shed. Do you see how much more actionable that is? We're saying, okay, we are not just losing weight, we are shedding it. We're taking action upon it. So we say shed 30 pounds of visceral fat. So that's one way to do that is just to simply have an orientation towards that. Um, you might also start putting in part of your strategy here. Um, and you can say with diet changes and exercise. Again, you're probably already thinking to yourself, you think DJ is going to say anything about being specific about the kinds of dietary changes and exercise that we should be doing for this? And the answer is very yes. Um, you might be jumping ahead a little bit, but it might be something we kind of do in a revision of this as well. But we'll get there. But that is something that is to keep in mind is that the more we go through this, the more we see how we can get more and more specific about changing those goals, and also how over time we might need to make adjustments to those goals to make them achievable. Um, so, and I forgot to write out the actual actionable. Now, in the original SMART system that kind of came out in the 70s, or I think it came out in the 70s. I probably am attributing that poorly. Actionable was, I believe, achievable or something like that, to where there were goals that were achievable. So that's valid. All right. So, whoa, sorry. So if the particular goal you have in mind is automatically actionable, you're doing something to get there no matter what. But what you need it to be is achievable, then by all means, make that an adjustment in your mind, right? Make that part of your strategy to say, um, I want to make this achievable as a goal, which is actually why I go into the next bit with this with our course example, because that makes it some difference there as far as actionable. There's a lot of things about this whole process that become very, very important to nail down, as far as like how it's going to be done, that sort of thing. But what I have to do is say, is that goal really achievable? And this is where it gets kind of into a territory with the next letter. We'll get into it in a moment here. But at the same time, it becomes a um, oh boy, what can I teach students in a practical sense? You know, what can I teach them in my experiences and that sort of thing? And so, this is actually where I came to the most uh, thought process in this past year was Okay, how can I take the things that I know, I've written about, I've done for years, I've done, you know, 20 plus years of this kind of stuff. All these things that came to my mind is like, okay, you're not a rookie here. You can teach stuff, right? What is it you want to teach? How can I make this actionable? How can I make this achievable? And so what I came to the conclusion with in my case was that I actually wanted to combine a few different things of what I have been teaching or writing about or shouting from the rooftops about. So it would be teach my methodology to, and this is where the achievement comes in, um, create confidence in Citrix. That was the initial goal that I had. We're going to get into a few minutes why that actually needs to be challenged again and get even more detailed. But I wanted to start there. That was kind of the process I went through. That was actually a little over 2 years ago, actually, saying, hey, you know what? I've got all this stuff that I know how to do. I've been doing it for a long time. Why don't I just teach others how to do it, right? So that was the part of that that's at least actionable. It's in theory achievable, right? But it didn't quite feel like I knew I needed to nail that down even more. So let's get into the next part of where this can get really challenging. And again, I think the original definition of smarter might have left this off or done it differently. And you know what? I don't care because I think that this next letter of smarter, the R, risky, is actually one of the more important things for a lot of us, especially in information technology, to actually get nailed out. And that is because sometimes we play it safe. We get a basic set of goals. We use the well, we don't have, it's not a four-letter word. I use four-letter words to describe it, but it's a three-letter acronym called MVP, which stands for minimum viable product. Um, it's something I really don't like. I'm done with this as far as it goes. As far as like there might be a minimum viable, but a lot of times that's not risky enough. It's not challenging enough. A lot of people will say, well, DJ, that's not realistic, which I believe actually was the the original um, smarter framework. Is that goal realistic? Um, which I thought was redundant, but also I don't like it. It's like, why would you do it? This comes back to what I was saying at the beginning, where it's like, if you're not connected with why you're doing something, then that will not be done that way. So let me give you an example from the Citrix world. Actually, I'll just be specific to that. So if you have a goal to deploy desktops for a group of users, okay, that's easy. Have it done tomorrow. But if you want them to actually have something that they want to use and be excited about, or at least not mad at you about, then that's going to take some more risks, right? You're going to have to actually take the risk of actually talking to them. You have to take the risk of actually, determining, are we going to be able to do this properly and not have consequences, that sort of thing. These are risks that you take in information technology. Same thing in life, really. I mean, there's a lot of things that I do that are risk taking all the time. Not always ideal, but sometimes you just have to in order to challenge yourself. If your goals aren't risky enough, you may just have that minimum viable product if you have a product at all. If we don't care enough to take a risk on something, odds are good we're going to just push that off for something that we actually do care about, even if that other thing actually involves some risks, and sometimes even substantial risks. I'm definitely guilty of this in my life. I I will very much. Well, I'll give you an example from literally this week. Doing a live broadcast and doing all this kind of stuff live with minimal preparation, is kind of doing it off the cuff of my head. That's pretty risky, right? Well, I could have just said no, I don't want to do it. I'll just maybe consider doing it another day. Um, I've got some other work to do. I'll just do that. So, but the other reality is that the other work I have to do right now, it's not really filling me with a lot of sense of adventure. It's just regurgitation kind of work, or just, sit there, click next. Those sort of things doesn't really excite me at all. But this does. You got to see me actually getting a little red in the face. I'm just excited to be here. It's also slightly warmer in here, but that's okay. So, but anyway, the point is that we want this to be something you are taking risks with. You don't want to play it safe. That's just not really what we want to do in our lives. People who play it safe get passed over. People that play it safe are more likely to be laid off. I don't want you to be those people. I want you to be people that actually are willing to take risks. Now, I'm not saying be reckless. You'll notice that R does not stand for reckless. It says risky because it wants to be something that's significant. Let's go back to Michael Hyatt on this. Actually, it's a pretty awesome. It says I challenge you to write your goals as like this for the next year, to make them ones that will stretch and challenge you. If you set goals that you can achieve, you aren't always forcing yourselves to rise to the challenge. And that's why, just to go back, as far as the last letter, that's why I think he took out achievable and made it actionable, is because it doesn't really fit with the spirit of risky, not risque, risky, and not whiskey, risky. All right. So how can we make our goals a little risky here? So, for example, I might say, well, DJ, if we're talking about over the course of a year, is losing 30 pounds of fat really all that risky? You know, um, Especially given where your measures are at right now. You got like 90 of those things to play with. I mean, obviously you're going to have some, but is 30 really all that risky? Is that this playing it safe? So I might have to say, well, maybe I increase that a little bit. So we just say up the ante a little bit and say we're going to shed, let's say 50. I know that'll stretch me. Just thinking about it actually, um, kind of makes me almost a little queasy. It's like, can I really lose, 50 pounds of visceral fat? Uh, do I actually have that much to shed? The answer is yes. I always do my videos from this far up, for that reason. There's a lot down here. I look like I'm about 8 months along. Uh, just it's, whatever. It's just the way my body is. I just kind of tend to put all the weight there. So it is something where, taking that risk of saying, okay, I know it's going to be a lot more effort. I know it's going to take a lot more focus, but that's something you can do with that. So, and then you say with challenging exercise, maybe just say a keyword to say, you know what, do more than you think you can. So embrace that fully, and embrace your why with that. And that's how to do some risks. Now, um, when it comes to the course, what if I said that, oh, you know what? I think that just the general concept of here's some lessons is not really good enough. What if I said, take, don't work, or dedicate yourself to, I'm kind of giving you some behind the scenes here that doesn't play into this necessarily, but it's just a general thought that I had of saying, okay, well, what if I did this for 12 weeks and made this a actual spread out over time, um, enough time for to really absorb what I'm teaching. So 12 weeks of classes. Now that doesn't sound risky, does it? Here's the thing. During those 12 weeks of courses, I will have, little or no consulting income. Ah, so now we have a different kind of risk. It's not just a risk of getting it completed, and it's not a risk of what it looks like. It's a risk of, this has to work, or kind of a thing, where I will actually not be making another income during that time. It also, makes that, so other things about that goal need to be remeasured as well. Like, how much do I need to make to do that? How much would I need to charge for this course to be able to do that? Obviously, I can't do it for free if I'm taking away my ability to make income, right? So there's some things where I can say, am I willing to? Do I care about this goal enough to make it that risky? The answer, by the way, is yes. It makes me nervous even just saying it, especially because I actually want to get to the process of launching a beta for this course next month. But I know that's what it's going to take to make an impact and to actually meet my goals of teaching at least 50 students this year. What I know about advancing their careers in Citrix and being confident in it, and we'll get even tighter in with that as we go along here, as you'll see that I've kind of been working through that process. But the thing is, it is a risky venture, right? So yeah, that's making sense. And again, I think what we'll end up doing is several reviews of this. Again, this is not something where this is a do it once and forget it kind of thing. I'm actually going to be challenging you to look at these goals at a minimum once a quarter, but at ideal, looking at these goals every single week and saying, do I need to make adjustments in my strategy here? What do we need to make some changes based on these criteria? Um, so so let's go to the T in this, and that is that they need to be time bound, because it's smarter than whatever, whenever. It's one of those things where, and this is especially true in IT, when we get distracted by other things that are coming up, making it a realistic but time bound kind of a thing where we're not just pushing it off, pushing it off, pushing it off. There's several things that I've done that, well, I would, losing weight's one thing. It's easy enough when you don't make that daily decision or that hourly decision that it's important to you. Again, I'm jumping ahead a little bit. We're going to get to that in a lot of detail when we talk about some of the system that I use next week. But when it comes down to it, if you don't have a time frame to complete the goal, and then also have time frames within that goal, then it becomes very, very difficult to say you will achieve it. That's just the reality of the situation. Another thing Michael says is, what gets scheduled gets done, and that was the thing that we kind of had in. Actually, we're going to do that next week again. We're going to go more through that, some of the scheduling aspects of that. But what gets scheduled gets done. So time bound means the most successful goals are those with a sense of urgency. How you can ensure that wow, how can you ensure your goals will trigger that response throughout the year? You need to time key your goals with either a deadline, a frequency, or a time trigger. So there are a couple different ways to do this, and it kind of depends on the kind of goal that we're dealing with. Some goals will not have a completion timeline. Sometimes you will have goals that are activity bound. In other words, you want to do them on a certain frequency. So I'll give you an example. So actually, we'll do this time bound. Let's do the weight loss thing. I'm just going to put this right in here as a habit goal or a frequency goal. So we'll say a habit. Let's say I'm just going to use some other measures here, just because we want to kind of do this right. So let's say that I want to get to the point where I can say I can do 50 minutes on the treadmill at level 6. I'm throwing out numbers here. And we do this daily. Right? That's our time-bound goal, is to get to the point where we can do that. Now, when it comes to that, I might also set a deadline for this. And this is actually one of the things we're going to talk about quite a lot here, because it's very friendly in our professional lives to have deadlines for things, right? So, but I want to reach this goal of having this habit formed by a certain day. So I'm going to say by um, March 30th. And if you're outside of the US, this is how we do things. We say the month and the day. Even though I literally didn't say it like that, but that's okay. We're very confusing as a people. So that's a habit goal. So we could say, okay, we want to get to the point where that's a habit by that time frame. But you'll also notice here that this is actually something that, as far as the goals thing, maybe my goal is to shed 50 pounds of visceral fat by August 15th. Odd day, right? Why would I think that? So I don't like setting goals that are the end of the year. That doesn't make a lot of sense. We tend to obliterate ourselves if we try and push through all of like a December. It doesn't make any sense. But also for me, I'm hoping that my wife and I can get away for our anniversary this year, and it's also a significant birthday for her this year. So I want to just have this. If I can get the point where, yeah, you know what, trip to the beach wouldn't feel so embarrassing, or whatever that looks like. I can say I want to do this thing that I'm doing by this time frame, so that I'm able to do a couple things. One, challenge myself, and two, I want to be able to divide the the points of this, and this is what we'll get into in, I believe, the next one, is how to actually start dividing this up into chunks that make sense. And so by making things time bound, we can say, okay, well, if I don't want to do this by August, what do I have to do each time? So, I've got, let's say, for example, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven. Great, seven. Good job, Deej. Let's just say and well, it's actually March. So let's just say that that would actually look more like 10 or 8, or some number of months, right? So we can divide it by those number of months. Okay, so how much would I need to do each month to meet that goal? So that's one way to do it. So you can say, you know what, if I can lose 5 pounds of visceral fat every month, then I've achieved that, right? In reviewing that, you might find that, it's going to take some time to get to the point where your body is actually doing that. And so you might say, well, for the first 3 months, my goal is to lose like 3 pounds of visceral fat every month. And then from there, you start ramping it up. So you might even get into that level of detail with that as you go along. But the point here is to actually have points along the pathway here that you can divide up and make those into smaller achievable chunks, which is another part of making it time bound, is to say, okay, I might have an overall time frame, but how can I separate this into smaller achievable things along the way that can actually um, feed into that? And so that's like a good example of that. And I think there's a lot of, again, this is something where this comes up all the time, especially if you work in any kind of development or anything like that. There's oftentimes deadlines, quarterly releases, those kind of things, to where you need to be aware of this, and the ability to set these goals proactively and say, yeah, I want to do this, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make this into smaller chunks, so I can actually do this. So in terms of our course, like, what would I have to say about, doing the course within that time frame, right? I've already defined a time frame of doing the course, but what about preparing for it? How much would I need to do? So maybe I just say dedicate X amount of time to be ready to launch on April 10th. You're saying to yourself, DJ, April 10th? Did you pull that out of the air? And I say, sort of. It's actually the 3-year anniversary of my first book being released on paperback, and so so that to me is like a key. It's like it's a trigger that helps me with the push towards that because I'm very much. I guess I'm just one of those people that are kind of like that. I like anniversaries and things like that. So if there's some sort of significant thing you can key into, like before an event or by an event or that aligns with, I don't want to be still working on this by this time. Those kind of things make sense, right? And so I could also say things like, I want to launch this and be completed with the the beta in enough time that I can actually go for a full launch of the course, which means another whole 12 weeks before I take a sabbatical at the end of the year, as is another goal of mine, is to get to the point of being able to take a sabbatical every single year. And then what I'm doing from that is expanding the time frame of that. So this year, for example, my goal is to expand from last year where I took a month long sabbatical. My goal is to actually do everything I can to make that so that from the Thanksgiving Day here in the U.S. clear to a little past New Year's Day, I'm on a sabbatical. I'm not available for activities. I've kind of negotiated that time away. So again, the concept of time plays in here a lot, but find that really helps, especially in these professional settings, to have those kind of goals. And so when you practice on things like weight loss, for example, it's a pretty common thing with these weight loss things or with these goals, is that it enables you to kind of put those lessons forward to other things in your life, and you kind of build on that success more and more every time, and you can introduce more risk into these by doing so. But I mean, when you're first starting out, maybe your goal is to lose 2 pounds this year. I don't know. Make it a yes. I will lose 2 pounds or 2 inches around my waist or whatever the measure works for you by a certain amount of time. It's like, well, I want to lose 2 inches off my waist by the time we're going on a family vacation in June. Okay, great. So you've got a time frame, you've got a goal, you got something specific, and it's actionable, and maybe it's risky, but now you've got some framework to do that. And so that's the SMART system as it was. But you know what? That's not quite good enough, is it? No, 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 no. Not good enough. Let's go with one more. Let's make it exciting. E stands for exciting. And this is where I get into someone who I would really like to meet someday. And that is Tony Robbins, who will say all the time, that you really should all over yourself. Just don't do that to yourself. Don't shit all over yourself. I know the transcription's going to probably go mad with that one, but hey, it is what it is, right? You don't want to live in should. You want to live in why. In other words, this is a challenge in a lot of people that are working in IT, for example, because you don't always feel like you're in control of your goals. In other words, people are giving you goals to do. That sucks. I'll be the first to say it. Now, if you can make that instead of I should or I have to, this is something I want to. If you can shift your mindset towards that, telling a different story, that's way more than I can cover in this video for sure. But if you can make these goals exciting for yourself, then that works better. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you've been handed a task that you are not really thrilled about. Who wants to defrag 50 servers? Okay, I just dated myself, didn't I? I went back into the old days when we actually had to do that kind of stuff. Whatever it looks like for you, that maybe something that's not very exciting, but maybe you can make it into something that is exciting. It's like, wait, what if I could set myself a goal of figuring out a way to do this more smarter? Wow, come on, Deej. What if I could do this in a smarter way that could not only be exciting to figure out, but I'd be excited about doing in the future because now I can do the same work in less time again. or I can pass that on to others, or I can teach others, or whatever it looks like. This is something I discovered very, very early on in my career. I was actually right before they were purchased by FedEx. Kinkos was having folks like me go around to stores all over the U.S. and we were doing these little credit card systems, right? And so it got monotonous fast because I mean, going to a new store every night, which is exciting, I guess, a little bit. But I'm also doing all my work very late at night. So that was exciting in a different kind of way, as in a terrifying, I'm in Atlanta and I'm going to die kind of way. Happy birthday to me. Yeah, that was my birthday in 2001, by the way. Yay. Anyway, the point is that there were some things that I could do, I found, to make things more efficient. And so I started, putting those into place. And what ended up happening was I started sharing that with the other teams, then eventually started sharing that with my manager at the time, the kind of the project manager. Next thing I know, she's kicking that up the chain to the kind of brass at Kinkos, and I'm being asked to come to the headquarters and kind of like um, nail this out along with some other folks, and we kind of just hash this out. So, is this a good way to do this? And can we train this for going on beyond this project? All this kind of stuff. Long and short of it is that by making that exciting for myself, I'm making this, okay, how can I optimize this process? How can I make this better? Um, and again, this was, 22 years ago, but still, it was something where I found I could make this exciting enough to go do it every night by making it better. And what ended up happening is we actually were able to eliminate an entire um, position out of this. And I say this kind of in a little bit of a, I wasn't a very popular guy after this with some people, but I was able to actually make the process so much better that, we were able to optimize every single team that was doing this project by, one less person having to be coordinated and all these kind of things. And so, I didn't really get anything out of that necessarily. I mean, that they sent me to Hawaii to do the stores there. It was great. But I mean, honestly, it's like beyond that. I don't think there's really any specific reward for me to do that. But the reward of making it exciting was enough for me. That actually kind of put things into my career moving forward. That it became exciting for me to even optimize things. And so, finding that level of excitement, regardless of what that looks like, it can just be something like, you know what, I'm going to learn something from this. I'm going to make it a point to just not do this or whatever. I'm going to make it an effort to retain something useful out of this for the next time or whatever that looks like for you. That becomes exciting. Now, some goals just are exciting, right? I mean, it's certain things where they naturally lend themselves to being exciting. And I will let you fill in the blanks with that. Oh, I really should have made this a proper grid, shouldn't I? Lessons for next time. Yeah, follow me for more recipes, right? So exciting. How can I make a weight loss goal exciting? Well, it's certainly ain't the process, right? Um, y'all, I've been miserable. Here I am, this big kind of bulbous guy, the kind of awkward looking, like long hair, big belly, sweating like crazy on a treadmill. It's not a good look, right? It's not a good look at all. And I'm around all these, fit 20 somethings and teenagers, and they're doing their Instagram poses. Not kidding, by the way. It's actually something, and kind of glaring at me if I'm in their shot, kind of a thing. Hey, you know what? So it's not very exciting to go to the gym. It doesn't fill me with excitement in the slightest. But it's something I do. Obviously, it's part of my goals, so I do it. But how can I make the process of weight loss exciting? Well, for me, I mentioned things like going on a vacation and not feeling bad about not feeling that same way when I'm on the beach, and wearing a lot less. Okay, that's a relevant goal. Lean into that. If that's what makes it exciting for you, lean into that. Don't worry about it being vain. Don't worry about it being self-serving. Guess what? a lot of the best things that have been achieved in this planet were essentially self-serving in nature in some way. You cannot really truly do good works. I mean, it's like a biblical concept, right? He's like, there's no righteousness. There's no one who's righteous. You know, that's not the way this works. You know, you can't make yourself perfect. It's not possible. So same kind of thing with this exciting aspect of it is saying, you know, don't worry about it being something where you would feel guilty about or right back into the should, right? It's not what this is about. Make this something that personally means something to you, that you want to go do it for an entire year or whatever the time frame is you're looking at this. So for me, this is kind of funny that I did a lot of introspection on this, and here's what I found. Um, Now that we're back into this, it's a little embarrassing actually to even think about how during the pandemic, like so many people that I put on so much weight in the specific areas that I did because I can get away with it. You know, you're only seeing me from here up. Well, that was me during all the speaking engagements and everything else like that during the pandemic. Well, guess what? Now I'm being asked to go out to places again. I want to have a TED Talk this year. It's another one of my goals to have um, to do a TED Talk this year, or TEDx talk, I should say. Well, do I really want to be on camera for millions to see, looking like I do right now? Well, I'll be honest with you. No. I mean, some people say, "Well, no, DJ, that shouldn't matter." Well, you know what? It matters to me. It matters to me. Um, I know human nature. Human nature is that you will not take me very seriously if I look, you know, kind of sloppy and you know, not put together well, or whatever myriad of things that come up. But more importantly is that I don't want to feel that way. And so it excites me to think about being on stage, not on display. In other words, I am not distracting anybody with my appearance. I am actually bringing things to the things I need to be thinking about, and I'm not just on display as a a focal point. I was like, oh my gosh, if only that guy would go to the gym. Maybe that guy should skip the hoagie. Well, I'm just throwing things out there. I don't know if that's what people actually say or not. I don't care. Like I said, it's more of just I want to have that persona. I want to actually be out there on stage as I want to perceive myself, even. You know, so there's a lot of that that just is really it's risky too, right? Because it's hard to know to get that down without a specific measure, and that's where a lot of this comes in. But there's also a thing that came into my mind about this too. I want to be able to run on stage and not be winded. And honestly, this comes from even right now. I actually feel a little bit of it. It's like my noise cancellation is probably filtering that out. You can probably see me breathing heavily, right? But the reality is on stage, I wouldn't have that. I won't have these things to hide behind, right? I will need to do that. So being able to jump on stage and be full of energy and let my energy be contagious so that people can actually get into what I'm talking about. Man, wouldn't that be fantastic? That is exciting to me. So that is a much better thing. That's the thing that keeps me coming to the gym every time and facing the TikTok demons. Sorry, I went there. They'll never see this, but but that's kind of what I'm talking about. It's like, you know, it allows me to face through these other things because I've made it exciting. And I've made it exciting not in the way of like guilt, you know, is that I don't want to necessarily be uh just I don't want to feel fat on stage or whatever. It's I kind of moved beyond that. It's like, okay, you know what? A better thing is just to say, you know what, let's focus on this. So let's say that's going to be a big driver. We're saying, you know what, that's even better. And so we edit our goals as we go, right? So what about the course? Um, and this gets into a lot of my why. Those of you that have seen me before, you've seen how I like to end a lot of videos and everything else I do. Um, I even had a podcast that was along this theme at one point, blog. I want to leave the world better than I found it. I have for quite some time wanted to not be doing IT work anymore. I said that in week one, so that was a part of the why discussion. I'm not revealing anything new. I know that there's a limited time frame where I'll be wanting to do this, right? So an exciting thing for me is being able to um, leave a pass along what I know. And I'm just going to abbreviate this. So it says leave it. Um, Specifically, leave the world better than I found it. So leave it better. What's going on here? Than I found it. Whatever. That's a horrible, horrible thing. I'm just going to say leave it. BTYFI. Better than I found it. That's better. Prepared speeches are often better. I apologize. So anyway, leaving it better than I found it. Important part of this. So it is. Ooh, wow. Look at that doing that. That's what I wanted to do. Get you above my head, not just take things randomly. So passing along what I know, leaving it better than I found it. These are starting to sound a lot better. What if this could be the gateway to a new career? What if this could unlock new lifestyle? These are exciting things, right? What if I could not have to worry about getting out to make a consulting appointment, and I could instead just focus on kind of that matrix we talked about last time, about focusing on those, only on those, you know quadrant two activities that are filling me up that day. What if I could focus in on that? That's exciting to me, to be able to say with absolute certainty that I could do that sort of things. And so it becomes more of like, yeah, making some income. Yeah, that can be exciting. I mean, honestly, I don't know, maybe this could be my ticket out of debt this year. I don't know. You never know. um, but if it becomes exciting for those kind of reasons that matter to you, in fact, I think I'm actually going to say it's exciting to you. Getting others excited about it is cool too, but it has to be exciting to you, and you have to be honest with yourself. This is where, when it comes to doing these kind of worksheets, to look at our goals, that's where we have to be very honest ourselves and say, okay, is this something that's actually exciting to me or not? And it's just what we need to do. All right, let's finish this up. Yeah, this has been a great session. I hope you guys are getting a lot out of this. But let's go on to the R, our last letter, and that is relevant. So, yeah, this is a struggle sometimes with people, because it feels like it's a little redundant. I've seen a lot of these things, say review, sometimes say redo, or things like that. I'm like, no, I like this definition. Here's what Michael Hyatt says: I look at this as a necessary gut check before you commit to your goals. You must review them and ensure that they are taking into account your life circumstances as well as your values. What you hope to achieve must be balanced with the reality of your circumstance. Aha. Now we've gotten to the things where sometimes we set pie in the sky goals and we have a list as long as our arm of things we want to do, and we got all these goals we want to do this year, and then we come to R and we say, do they matter? Are they going to move the needle forward in my life? Are we really going to be able to do these things? And so we're asking if they are relevant. No, there's no A there. Woo. Woo, buddy. Oh my goodness. It's one of those days, folks. Yes, indeed. So, are they relevant? So, this can be tough sometimes, especially when they're things you really are either passionate about, or if you are having goals that really do fall into the should category, if they're being assigned to you, sometimes they are very relevant because, hey, you know what, your job is to do these things, right? So that can be a challenge at times. But the thing to make this important to you, obviously, to make it exciting, but also to make it relevant, may also mean changing how you view the goal as far as how it's executed. What I mean by that is sometimes I'm given goals that are part of a team. And so I say, am I responsible for doing this or am I responsible for it having been done? Do you see the distinction there? Am I responsible for the one being to do this, or am I responsible to make sure it's done? In other words, can I delegate certain things? Which gets right back into what we were talking about last time with the quadrants, where if you have something that's in quadrant one and it could be delegated, well, can you? Well, then by all means, do so, right? Same kind of thing here. Where we're saying, how can I get to the point where I can make sure this gets done? I can be living in my skill set, but maybe I'm not the only one working on it. How can I recruit others to my cause, so to speak? And so you're making it relevant to you in that way. Now, other things might just be relevant to the world, I guess you could say. In other words, is it consistent with your values, as we were saying? So, is this a goal that actually matters not only to you, but it matters beyond you? Now, this is the funny thing. I was like, let's talk about the weight loss thing. Is the weight loss goal relevant to me? Yes. Is it relevant to the world? Well, in some cases, yes, because I do say, I don't want it to be a distraction. So if I feel it's a distraction and it's leading people away from, taking the content seriously, well, then yeah, that's something where I want to make sure that I'm making it relevant in that regards. But maybe there are just other things that I need to make it relevant for, like in terms of my values. Do I feel we must be skinny as a people? No, no. That would be awfully hypocritical of me to say that sort of thing, right? Um, and I also don't want to make them just impressive for the sake of being impressive. It's like, look at me, I lost 75 pounds on the Deej program. I don't want to do that either, right? So, even if it's true, even if it ends up being, yeah, okay, I was able to achieve this, but I don't want it to be something where I'm, braggadocious about it. That's not really relevant. That's just impressive. Okay, great. What are you doing? What are you doing next year? Is usually the response to those sort of things. You want to make it so that it's a lasting kind of a thing, right? But also that it fits into your life circumstance as well. To give you an example, someone like me, actually, let's get right into this. I have high blood pressure, right? It's something I'm working through. In fact, I've got an appointment tomorrow to go uh, deal with more of this kind of stuff. Right, so it's actually something I'm finding a little bit scary when it comes to really pushing myself at the gym because I don't want to end up in the hospital again. Yeah, long story, but basically, I don't want to make it so that I'm working so hard and so excited about my goals that it actually is dangerous. That's not acceptable. And so there has to be a point where I say, okay, how does this fit within my actual life circumstances as well? You know, now again, I do want you to go back to the other R here, and I want you to take risks. I don't want you to say, well, my life circumstances is that I'm a woman, so that women can't achieve that. They don't do that. Throw that out the window, please. Please. We need you. Please throw that out. Those kind of things just don't they're not relevant. They're just, more of that why isn't fully connected there. So it's not relevant in that way. It's more of just a circumstantial thing that's not appropriate. So it might be a life circumstance that you have a certain thing that's true of you, but it doesn't mean you have to throw your goals out because of it. It just means you might have to make adjustments to get there, right? I have into foot in mouth territory, but it's just how I feel, right? So it is one of those things where it's like I don't deal with excuses all that well these days. I used to live in them a lot, and there's points I tell of my story that like I used to. Well, there's a point where I was literally living out of my car, and I was living out of my car because of excuses. I was waiting for things to happen to me instead of waiting to do things. Um, it's long story, obviously, and I don't want to go into that today. But life circumstances didn't have to be what defined me in that case, and it doesn't have to be what defines you either. Maybe write that down. Life circumstances don't have to be what defines you. Your goals can, though. You can be defined by your achieving of goals. That can be something that you can make part of um, your value system. Is I am somebody who sets goals that I can and will achieve. And that can be part of your value system. Not saying it has to be, saying it can be. In the weight, I can't say I'll lose 100 pounds of visceral fat. You know why? 'Cause I don't have 100 pounds of visceral fat. And so saying uh, as a goal, it wouldn't be realistic. Now, do I have 100 pounds to lose or shed? Yeah, probably. Yeah, in fact, as a matter of fact, my high school weight is for people that use that as a measure. When I said, "Oh my gosh, I'm getting too heavy," that was uh, over 100 pounds ago. So, in terms of like weight, I could say lose 100 pounds of weight. Even that would be not realistic, but also not smart. I don't think that would be necessarily healthy for someone of my age. Uh, you know, yeah, yeah. Sorry, I'm just thinking about other things like how that does play into our health as we get older, and some personal concerns there. But anyway, so sorry. Whew, back to it. Come on, Deej. You want to set that as a relevant to you goal that is, obviously realistic is one way to say it, but also, relevant. So maybe instead of saying, I just want to make this big statement to the world, maybe I will say that, what, um, shedding 50 pounds is right for this year. So I'll kind of say that's my relevant. So I'll say, um, shed 50 pounds of visceral fat. And then this is a great opportunity to kind of look into some of these other things like being time bound and things like that, um, to put this all to kind of together, which is our final part of the exercise we'll be doing here in a minute. By um, August 15th. And that's how I'd write that out. Now I might have some additional thoughts about that, about why that's relevant for me, and why that fits. I might have some research that I've done that says, what, the amount of visceral fat for somebody who is my height and build is X. Um, that's why, by the way, these aren't exactly exact numbers. I'm throwing these out there, but there might be some things like that where you just very much get it very keyed in, and it might look like more like here, for example, it might look like shed 43 pounds. I make that exact, that precise. So it's not just rounded numbers. This is exactly where I want to be. So I know this, right? That might look like that. I might also add other things that are relevant about that. Saying, what, I have a bunch of clothes I want to fit into because I bought them, 10 years ago, and I'd really like to fit into them again. I've been taking them from place to place. I'm getting too personal again, aren't I? But absolutely, it's true, right? There's been things like that in my life where there's motivating factors like that are very much relevant to my circumstances. My circumstances that I have a closet that is at least a quarter full of clothes that I can't wear. Okay, that makes it pretty relevant. It makes it exciting too, and measurable. All these things fit in. So I hope you're getting this. That it really, once you start living in the system, you see how you refine your goals more and more and more and more, and make them better and better the more you write them. And again, next week we're going to talk about writing them all the time, rewriting them on a constant, on a very, not a constant basis, but a very regular basis. Let's talk about the course. Now, this is where it kind of gets a little obvious. And so, but asking the question, you know, well, why don't I just become like what's called an affiliate and sell somebody else's courses that are doing this? You know, what about the course is going to be very specific enough to make this relevant to who I want to teach and what they'll get out of it? Well, maybe I see something specific jump out at me here and say, you know what, the course needs to teach how to become an architect. Maybe I get more specific about that because I've said, okay, well, to be very relevant here, it's not just that I'm teaching the technology. It's not that I'm teaching even how to do it. I'm teaching um, teach how and why to become an architect. It becomes tighter and tighter, tighter as I go along, and I'm not quite there yet. I'm still working on that, but those become reasons to that are relevant not only to me but to others. You know, what impact do I want to leave? Other people can teach the skill sets, like the very click here, click next, all that kind of things. It's also changing all the time, and so me putting it into a 12-week course would be a nightmare. I'd be updating content constantly. Well, what can I do that's relevant to that goal of doing it that way? And what would be relevant to my experience, my life, and what I want to leave? Well, if I focus in on the soft skills part of this, like the getting into the nuances of design that are not being met elsewhere, then if they're not being met elsewhere, then that means that's now kind of my choice whether I choose that burden of being the one that takes it on, knowing full well that there's some huge risks there that I didn't get into. That's not just the little income during that time. It's like, well, who's going to buy it? It becomes a little bit more niche, right? And so there's a lot of things that go into that, but it makes it more relevant for what I want to do, right? So it's very much a much more uh, hearty, meaty kind of a goal at that point. So to say that I want to teach people to literally be able to do these aspects of what I'm doing, but not tech skills. It's risky. It's specific. It is, if I put a time frame on it, April 10th. If I say what I'm teaching and how I'm doing it, then it becomes very actionable. And if I say how many students and teach maybe 50 people this lesson, now all of a sudden it's measurable. What do you say we put some theme music on and let us work on this a little bit more, huh? Let's see, what's a good selection for today? Let's see. Let's go with pretty exciting there. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Anyway, regardless, look, I want you to get into this. I want you to really understand that this all flows together, right? So these two work side by side. So all the things that we're doing in our lives to make this day-to-day decision, these goals fit right into it. Right? These way of doing things fit right into what we want to accomplish here. It makes it very much a pattern of, look, I am prioritizing this over this because of this. You start to be able to be empowered for that. And honestly, the notion here is that, it really becomes viable. So my challenge to you is, and we're going to get into this next week, like I said, but my challenge to you is to take a piece of paper and start writing this out. For every single goal you have this year, every goal you want to make, always do this framework with it and reiterate time and time again. How can I make this a tighter and tighter and tighter goal that is specific, measurable, actionable, risky, time-bound, exciting, and relevant? Just all the relevant up on the screen here, but yeah. Put it on a little banner here, so make sure you follow that. That's important. But so here's the thing. I want you to do this, and what I'm hoping to do at the end of all this is have some little live gathering kind of thing. Just kind of go over these with people, do some impromptu coaching, all these kind of things to help out with this. But honestly, it's about doing the work, right? It's about making sure we get out there. So let me switch gears a little bit here and say, okay, do you have any? I've not been following the chat here. Hi, my friend Matt. Awesome. Matt says, love the addition of risky. In my opinion, that adds an element of excitement to an otherwise boring SMART goal. Yes, indeed. It helps bridge the perceived gap from the BHAG or big, hairy, audacious goal or stretch goals. Stretch goals is not something we talked about in this, but I absolutely believe that they're necessary. They're part of that risky part for sure, where you're just saying, okay, what more can you do here? Is my goal to lose 10 pounds? Like, yeah, we can do that in a year, right? Maybe I stretch that a little bit. Or maybe I just make it say that, you know what, I'll achieve this by this time, and then I'll stretch even further. That sort of thing. So it's very relevant. Also says, yeah, sorry, I just put up the wrong one. Sorry, Matt. Should have put the revised copy up. Oh, that's me, right? Absolutely. Let's see. So let's do this here. Anyway, so that is today's lesson, I guess, broadcast, whatever. But honestly, yeah, it's exciting, right? To get into this stuff. I hope it's exciting for you. I don't want this to be something that is me banging you over the head with this, because the honest truth is, I get asked this question all the time. It's like, DJ, how did you write 2 books? How did you get them published and still be a busy consultant, right? I get asked that question every now and then. And the reality is that, it is very much a question of, I set some goals to do it. And my first goals were not very good. My first goal is to write a book. I've got it. You can't see it here, but it's on a Post-it note that hangs on my door. One of these wall-sized Post-it notes like this one. It hangs on my door over here, kind of to remind me that it's what happens when I don't set smarter goals. They end up being not achieved goals. And so yeah, it's one of those things where you absolutely want to make this something that's integrated into your life, not just for lightweight reasons, but for reasons that matter to you. That's where that exciting part really comes in, but also the relevant part. So the reality is, like when it comes to writing books, for example, I sat on a book for several years. I didn't get it done. Why? A lot of reasons. One, I was afraid. Another, I didn't really know if people wanted it. I still don't know if people want it. But that didn't matter, because the honest truth was that it mattered to me that it got done. It mattered to me that it was not just achieved, but that it was out there for people. That I wrote something that was mattering to people. There's a lot of things about this that really kind of fill me back up again when I'm feeling kind of empty. Just this week, somebody that I was doing some consulting work for put it together in their head. It's like, wait a minute, I just realized that I read your book and I didn't realize I was talking to you. How cool is that? That I was removed from the equation. Only the impact of reading the book was there. So that was kind of fun for me. I was like, it sounds weird to say it that way, but that's the honest truth, is that I was feeling a sense of pride and accomplishment. Well, that wouldn't have happened if I wouldn't have set these goals for myself and said, okay, how can I do this year? How can I make this a thing that I do? In fact, then I looked at it and said, why not make this risky? Why not say 2 books in 1 year? And you know what? I did that too. So I did 2 books in 2020, which is stupid. Don't do that. It's because I did it. But here's the thing. There were some measurable aspects of that. The way I did it, it made it so I can learn the process of doing it again. And will I publish another book? Absolutely. In fact, my initial goal for this year, when I first started out, was to publish another book. By, I believe, May was my time frame that I originally chose to do the next book. In evaluating these goals and saying, okay, is this relevant? Is it relevant for me to publish this book this year? Given my life circumstances, the where I'm at financially, where all these kind of things, is taking that particular time and the risk to do that properly, is this something I want to do? And the answer was no. The answer was I really need to focus in on specific things this year, and so that's why I rewrote these goals. So that's an example. So it can be done. It can be done. You just have to be willing to put yourself out there a little bit more and kind of have that attitude of, even if it's just normal day-to-day activities, how can I use this to leave the world a little better than we found it? All right. I hope you got something great out of today. I hope there's something that really stuck with you. I actually, I'm going to stick around for a little bit longer. I think we've got another meeting that I don't think I need to be in. So if you have any questions, maybe we'll give us another few minutes to put those out. Just put them in the chat. It should do a all of the various networks that I'm streaming to right now should all aggregate the questions. If not, I'll try to look at them over and maybe include those questions in a future episode. So if you have any questions, I'll give that just a moment. I know there's a delay to catch up from what I'm saying and when people are typing and then hitting the enter. It's usually about 30 to 45 seconds. But anyway, that's the rub for today. So I hope you guys have had a great day and that this is something that is you can put into action because next week we're going to let the rubber hit the road, so to speak. We're going to put this into action in a big, big way. And so the more you can do work-wise with this, getting this nailed down, the more successful you'll be next week when we go into the other parts of this. And what we're going to be talking about specifically next week, actually, is getting into the margins. Like the theme of this whole thing was in the margins March. That's how we're going to teach it next week. We're going to show you how that we can put major things in the margins of our life. Sounds weird, but you know what? That's exactly what I've learned how to do, and that's exactly what I'm going to teach you next week. Awesome, guys. It's great to be with you today, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. Until next time,